Good evening and welcome tonight. Nigeria must get it right to the 2023 general elections, River State Governor Nyesom Wike declares, warns of dire consequences of failure as former President Obasanjo criticizes current practice of democracy in the country. Labour Party's presidential candidate Peter Obi promises to ensure the oil recently discovered in Bauchi is used to develop the state and the north. PDP presidential flag bearer Atiku Abubakar vows his administration will give the nation's youth and women a sense of belonging if he's elected next month. And APC's presidential candidate Bola Tinubu blames the PDP over fuel supply crisis in the country, restates commitment to the nation's educational development.
On business news tonight, Central Bank and Nigeria Interbank Settlement System launched National Domestic Card Scheme known as Afrigo.
On sports news tonight, Arina Sabalenka and Elena Rybakina claim straight sets victories to reach the final of the Australian Open for the first time.
And from Abuja, the nation's capital, House of Representatives raises concern over possible disenfranchisement of Nigerian students in the forthcoming polls, threatened arrest warrant on CBN Governor Godwin Emefiele for failure to answer summons.
And in international news from London, Ukraine hit by Russian missiles after securing battle tanks from allies.
How to tap into the benefits of democracy was the center of discussion at the Port Harcourt International Conference today, where former President Olusegun Obasanjo deplored the current practice of the system of government in the country. However, listed measures to be taken if the country must get it right going forward. For the host governor, Nyesom Wike, Nigeria's experience from previous elections should propel the country towards credible polls in 2023. The event witnessed the unveiling of a book, Bridging Rivers, which captures the evolution of infrastructure development in the state and the contribution by Nyesom Wike's led administration in this regard.
Excellency.
The immediate past governor of Ekiti State, Dr. Kayode Fayemi,
former President Olusegun Obasanjo arrives a few minutes past 9 a.m. the auditorium at the Dr. Obi Wali International Conference Center, where a contingent of other prominent politicians, including former Governor Peter Odili, policymakers, and other personalities, are gathered for the discussions.
Thank you very much, sir.
With the theme, Deepening Democratic Culture and Institutions for Sustainable Development and Security in Nigeria, the conveners hope to collate expert views on how to improve the nation's socio-political system.
It's my great pleasure to be here. We are honored to be partners with the River State government to do this event.
Are we going to continue to manage a democratic system that you could say is essentially illiberal? Because while it has the essential democracy, beneath it there are still issues of poverty, the personalization of power, the tendency to contain civil society, to abridge democratic spaces. Are our political parties performing the functions of political parties?
Against the backdrop of a critical political period, the chairman of the event and former governor of Ekiti State, Dr. Fayemi, stresses the need for a decent political atmosphere.
There is much work to be done to ensure that our democracy is anchored and propelled by committed Democrats who ensure that their followers also engage with civility that is befitting of citizens. Clearly, another type of politics is possible and indeed is desperately needed in our country.
Governor Wike, in his opening remark, warns that if the country fails to get it right in this year's election cycle, it could have dire consequences for the country.
The success or failure of these elections would have substantial implications for the country. Success will add value by consolidating and strengthening the roots of our democracy. A failure may increase political polarization, exacerbate our social fault lines, and set our democracy backwards.
In a keynote address, former President Olusegun Obasanjo decried what he terms the abnormality in the nation's democratic practice.
It is true that a governing and ruling elite that is not firmly anchored in production will not have the urge to invest in research and development, science and technology, and good governance. And such an elite will not have much interest in dominating the local markets and penetrating foreign markets to promote accumulation for development and growth.
Moving forward, the former president makes his recommendations to address the prevailing democratic culture in Nigeria.
It begins with self-commitment, then leadership commitment. There are thousands of persons with integrity all over the country and in the diaspora. Leaders need to identify and connect these persons with their communities and organizations to build a true national movement and commitment to democratic practice. Once we commit to opening up democratic spaces, sanctioning breaches, and emphasizing transparency and accountability at all levels, Nigeria will begin the cultivation of a new democratic culture that will spread to all nooks and corners of the nation.
The meeting then proceeds into a second segment where a book, Bridging Rivers, published by Julius Berger Nigeria PLC, is unveiled to transfer to posterity the evolution of infrastructure development in River State and the significant contribution by the Nyesom Wike-led administration.
Jointly and collectively, by the grace of God and with the grace of God, unveil this on behalf of all of us here.
The Port Harcourt International Conference continues for a second day with roundtable discussions on several issues of national concern.
Meanwhile, the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Mr. Atiku Abubakar, says his government will give youths and women a sense of belonging if he's elected president in next month's election. He made the promise during the party's presidential rally in Abakaliki, the Ebonyi state capital. Mr. Abubakar says the youth can be what they want to be in Nigeria with the right government in place.
We want you to succeed us, and for you to succeed us, you must be responsible citizens. You must be hard-working young men and women. We all came from very poor background, but we worked hard. If you work hard, you can be anything. So, our young men and women, I want to assure you that the next government of PDP is going to be a government for the youth and for the women. The men are few. It's going to be for the youth and for the women, because you are in majority and we must recognize that, and we must give you the opportunity so that you can also be able to be leaders of this country. So, people of Ebonyi, we are convinced that this state is a PDP state. And as you know, I am committed to power devolution and as well as resource, rather restructuring. And I know all the southeastern states have been learning and have been propagating for the restructuring of this country, because they want to have more powers and more resources to deal with their own local affairs. We agree entirely.
And the presidential candidate of the All Progressives Congress, Bola Tinubu, has accused the PDP of sabotaging fuel supply in the country in order to blackmail the federal government. Speaking in Makurdi, the Benue state capital, during the APC's presidential campaign, Senator Tinubu says as a government, the PDP administration gave fuel retail licenses to their supporters and sympathizers who are now holding the product to create long queues across the country and making Nigerians suffer. He again gave the assurance that his administration, if elected, will ensure access to quality education and education loans to allow brilliant and indigent students have higher education.
The Upper Aku Township Stadium in Makurdi, the Benue State's capital, witnessed hosted supporters of the All Progressives Congress as they welcomed the party's presidential candidate, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. Swayed by the popular music of the Thieves, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu shows his excitement alongside his deputy, Senator Kashim Shettima. From the governorship candidates of the party in Benue State to other officials present at the rally, the need for residents to vote APC all the way resonates.
I know, and I want you to know, to believe, and look at my lips and read my lips. These are the genuine great people we have for Nigeria in a number of weeks. Patriotic Nigerians, come 2023 on the 25th of this month, your PVC should not be wasted.
I'm showing you the certificate of endorsement.
The APC presidential candidate mounts the podium to deliver his address as he takes a swipe at the PDP and its presidential candidate for trying to sabotage the federal government.
Poverty Development Party. They are what I call yesterday the saboteurs. They issue to themselves PMS, Petroleum Product License, to their supporters, to their sympathizers. They changed the cause. They started creating queues.
He further assures the youths of Benue State of quality education, in addition to ending the clashes between farmers and herders if elected as president.
I'm assuring you, all our students, once you elect me, we will establish student loan.
The message of renewed hope by the party is serving as an impetus for the party to believe in its capacity to reclaim Benue State from the PDP.
In part two, after the break, a former Minister of Interior, retired Lieutenant General Abdurrahman Dambazo, accuses politicians of escalating security concerns ahead of the general elections. That's in a moment. To join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Nigeria must get it right at the 2023 general elections, River State Governor Nyesom Wike declares, warns of dire consequences of failure as former President Obasanjo criticizes current practice of democracy in the country. Labour Party's presidential candidate Peter Obi promises to ensure the oil recently discovered in Bauchi is used to develop the state and the north. PDP presidential flag bearer Atiku Abubakar vows that his administration will give the nation's youth and women a sense of belonging if he's elected next month. And APC's presidential candidate Bola Tinubu blames the PDP over fuel supply crisis in the country, restates commitment to the nation's educational development. Back on the campaign trail, this time with the Labour Party's presidential candidate Peter Obi, who's assuring people of Bauchi State that oil discovered will be used to develop their state and the northern region. He made the pledge at the party's presidential campaign rally at Tafawa Balewa Stadium in Bauchi, the state capital. Mr. Obi also paid glowing tribute to the first and only Prime Minister in Nigeria's history, Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, who hails from the state.
The Labour Party presidential campaign train is in Bauchi State, and the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa Stadium is hosting supporters and party members. The presidential candidate, Mr. Peter Obi, takes inspiration from the first and only Prime Minister in Nigeria's history, Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, who hails from the state as he woos the electorate to vote for him.
In June 1964, Tafawa Balewa applied to World Bank to give him $82 million to build the Kainji Dam to generate power. Today, Kainji Dam is still there.
Bauchi is rich from commerce, industry, and agriculture. The recent discovery of oil in the state is expected to further boost the economy of the state, and the Labour Party has plans for that.
Today, Nigeria is owing 77 trillion. When we add our ways and means, which is equivalent, when we use our 410 naira per dollar, it is now worth $187 billion.
Other members of the campaign team also addressed the supporters, urging them to get their permanent voter cards and vote out the old order.
When I was coming here, I remember when I came here before, you know what they said to me? They said to me, if Nigeria is to make progress, we need somebody like you. So I promise the ML that I will come back sometime with some people like me. I have come back with Peter Obi and Dati Baba Amen. God have answered our prayer. They say they don't know how to pay salary. God has given us a man that knows how to pay salary. God has given us a man who knows how to pay gratuity. God has given us a man who knows how to pay pension.
Earlier, the team paid a courtesy call on the Emir of Bauchi, His Royal Highness Alhaji Ruwan Adamu, in his palace. Dili Omoyeni, Channels Television News.
While discussions on ways to ensure the general elections are conducted hitch-free remain on the front burner, this time a former Minister of Interior, retired Lieutenant General Abdurrahman Dambazo, is accusing politicians of escalating the security concerns in the build-up to the polls. Speaking virtually at a forum in Abuja, General Dambazo resorting to the politics of ethnicity and sectionalism tends to aggravate the situation.
It's a month to the 2023 general elections, and issues on how to make it a success continue to dominate discussions. Youth, members of civil society organizations, and government officials converge on this hall to deliberate on how to achieve an all-inclusive electoral process.
We are seeing polls predicting win for different candidates or even projections. What role do we think this will play post-election, and how do we think it will impact the acceptability of the outcome?
One issue that generated most concern is security during and after the elections, especially in view of the rhetoric from the campaigns.
Some of these security issues or security challenges are creation of politicians themselves, because where they, go for politics of ethnicity, politics of religion, politics of regionalism. Those kind of politics are divisive, and they tend to create tension.
There are over 600 different communities that have been highlighted as locations with high insecurity, where they're not even sure if INEC is going to be able to set up the polling units in those areas. So that's on one hand, and that's what everyone's already concerned about.
The amendment of the Electoral Act came with innovation, which is considered positive for the exercise. The youth and vulnerable persons are urged to take up the challenge of making their votes count.
More people now have ability to share information. The advent of social media has come to play its role. So a lot of people are now into the election frenzy, but on the whole, I'm very optimistic that we're going to have not a perfect election, but a semi-successful election.
Youth make up the majority of the population in Nigeria, so it's a very, very important demographic for us as a country, and also people with disabilities, or rather disenfranchised people, and also like lower class. It's very important that they are fully represented and included in this process.
The 2023 general elections are almost here, and these Nigerians expect that citizens make the most of it to ensure national development.
Still ahead of the general elections, the United Nations resident and humanitarian coordinator in Nigeria, Mr. Matthias Schmaler, is appealing to all political parties to refrain from engaging in hate speech and disinformation. According to the UN representative, words can be weaponized and ultimately lead to physical harm. He made this call during a media engagement to mark the 2023 Holocaust Remembrance Day in Abuja.
The United Nations Information Center is organizing this observance of the International Day of Commemoration in memory of victims of the Holocaust to remind the world of the lessons to be learned. Since 2005, January 27th is set aside to highlight these lessons, and one of the biggest of lessons is the impact of hate speech, especially as Nigeria prepares for the 2023 general elections.
I have seen instances, and I have to say from all political parties, not just one, from all political parties, that are dangerously close to hate speech and intolerance. So, our call is really, as United Nations, to all political actors, to all four main candidates and the remaining candidates, please refrain from it yourself, as well as make sure that your supporters don't have a sense that you endorse discrimination on the basis of race, ethnicity, or religion.
The day is set aside by the United Nations General Assembly in honor of 6 million Jews and others that died under the Nazi regime. The Israeli ambassador to Nigeria emphasizes the need to educate more people on the Holocaust so as to render the proper narrative of what transpired.
A European country which only today released statistics which say 25% of their young people do not believe the Holocaust happened, and 60% believe that the numbers are exaggerated and that 6 million didn't really die. This is a European country. This is the place where it happened. It happened on that soil, and barely 75, 80 years later, people are saying they think it's made up. That's our real challenge for education. We need to be going out and educating young people and telling them what happened, not because it's only because it's important to tell them what happened, but if you want to prevent things happening in the future, you have to learn from the past.
The United Nations calls on all stakeholders to stand up and speak out against instances of hate speech and discrimination to promote a united society.
In the meantime, the spokesperson of the All Progressives Congress, Mr. Festus Keyamo, is seeking an order of the Federal High Court, Abuja, to effect service of the originating summons and all subsequent processes in the suit instituted against the presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Atiku Abubakar, by substituted means. In suit number marked FHC ABJ CS 84 2023, Mr. Keyamo is praying that the order be granted as the itinerary of Atiku Abubakar is unpredictable in this period of campaigns, and it would be difficult to locate him for the purpose of personal service. He further adds that the retinue of security personnel and aides around the presidential candidate will make it difficult to access him. I guess we'll get some more stories now from Maokwe Ogun Yusuf in our Abuja studio. Hi, Maokwe.
Hello, Amarachi. We're off to the National Assembly now, where the Speaker of the House of Representatives is threatening to compel the appearance of the Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, and managing directors of banks who failed to appear before the House of Representatives. The Speaker gave the warning after the CBN and some bank MDs failed to honor the invitation of the House Ad Hoc Committee, which is on a fact-finding mission on the scarcity of the new Naira notes across the country. In the meantime, the House is also raising concerns over the possible disenfranchisement of Nigerian students who would likely be writing examinations during the general elections. Our correspondent Terry Kumi has details of these and more from the House.
Discussions on the cashless policy.
Following a motion on a matter of urgent public importance on Tuesday, the House of Representatives constituted an ad hoc committee led by the House leader to find out reasons for the shortage of the redesigned Naira notes across the country. The Central Bank of Nigeria and managing directors of Nigerian banks were invited to a meeting on Wednesday, but no official of the CBN honored the invitation, and the meeting was rescheduled to Thursday. Ahead of the meeting during Thursday's plenary, this is how the Speaker reacted.
If by the end of today there is further disregard to the summons of this House, I will not hesitate to issue a warrant to the Inspector General of the Nigerian Police to compel the attendance of the CBN and or managing directors who fail, refuse, or neglect to respond to the summons by the House of Representatives. The House is also aware that Section 20, subsection 3 of the Central Bank of Nigeria Act mandates the CBN to redeem the face value of the recalled currency upon demand, even after the expiration of the notice of recall.
While plenary continued, the committee members moved to the meeting venue to await representatives of the Central Bank and other Nigerian banks. After 2 hours of waiting, the commercial bank operators were seated, but no representative from the CBN was in sight.
Somewhere, somehow, there is a dark horse behind this agenda, and will not allow a dark horse to continue to drag the success of our electoral process. No one individual can be greater than Nigeria, and nobody can be above the law. So it is the position of the committee that we will recommend to the Speaker to quickly initiate and engage the necessary instrumentality of the law to compel the governor of the central bank to appear before this honorable House for and on behalf of the House of Representatives and on behalf of Nigerian people.
In their submissions, the banks say they are not receiving the new notes as much as the old notes they deposit with the CBN. Back in the chamber, lawmakers argue for and against a bill to regulate donor agencies.
Sometimes the donor agencies that send this money might not really be, not in all cases, in some cases, might not really be for the purpose of development. They can also send this money to promote terrorism, which can further increase the level of insecurity in the country. So that's why it's also good for us to monitor how this money comes in and how it is utilized.
Who are these international donors? USAID, UKID, UNICEF, DFID, United Nations, European Union, OAU, and all whatnot. Is that whom you want to go to control?
Some of the NGOs going to rent a house, a hotel, for 3-4 years, 10 years. What are they telling you? This crisis should not end. We are here. That's the intention. And they will go to places where Nigerian troops and other Nigerians cannot reach. How do they get to that kind of level of arrangement?
The bill eventually scales second reading. Meanwhile, following reports that over 3 million Nigerian students are unlikely to vote in the general elections due to scheduled examinations, the House of Representatives is calling for an adjustment in the examination timetable.
concerned that these students, who constitute 40.8% of the newly registered voters, have their polling units sited in states outside their campuses, thereby necessitating traveling outside their respective institutions to vote in the 2023 general elections. Further concerned that tertiary institutions are not considering academic breaks for students during the general elections.
Lawmakers are also asking the Independent National Electoral Commission to ensure that every registered student gets their PVC. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
And talking about the elections now, with less than 30 days to the general elections, Nigerians have been urged to interrogate the manifestos and campaign promises of politicians before electing them to office. The charge was given by multiple speakers at the 20th Daily Trust Dialogue, focused on interrogating the 2023 presidential agenda, which was held in Abuja. Catholic Archbishop Emeritus of Abuja, John Cardinal Onayekon, warns against rigging, especially in the light of the visa ban threat by the United States. Our correspondent, Kayla Megwa, reports.
Barely a month to the 2023 general elections, the Daily Trust Dialogue holds its 20th session in Abuja, and this time the focus turns to interrogating the 2023 presidential agenda. The Chairman Board of Directors of the Media Trust Group begins the conversation with a look at deliberate disenfranchisement of Nigerians in certain parts of the country using violence.
We know that this violence is directed against the police, INS facilities, and personnel. And this might put off whole communities from voting. This deliberate disenfranchisement will feed into the separatist agenda and become self-fulfilling prophecy.
The American ambassador to Nigeria restates his policy on visa bans for any Nigerian culpable in Scotland and Nigeria's electoral process.
We have taken steps in the past to impose U.S. visa restrictions against those complicit in undermining the electoral process. And you may have seen that Secretary Blinken announced just yesterday that we have identified specific individuals for such past actions. We will similarly deny or cancel visas for those who try to undermine the upcoming elections.
The dialogue moves to the manifestos sent in by the top 4 presidential candidates for the 2023 general elections. Highlighted in their speeches as sectors they say they will make top priority if elected into office, and standards they say they will set if they become Nigeria's president. As the panel sits, they take issue with the similarities between all the manifestos and a lack of conviction of principles.
Everyone can identify a problem. Our real challenge is in getting any candidate to take the problems and give you strategic, deliberate, intentional guideline of how they want to solve the problem with clear plans that you can hold people to.
The discussion is thrown to the audience, and contributions are made from a wide variety of speakers, ranging from former governors to party leaders and Nigeria's election umpires. Secondary students in Abuja at the event got to ask questions to members of the panel.
Why do we always live in fear of a religious uproar? The fear of being lynched because I belong to some group, in quote.
So religion is not important when you're talking about godliness. That's why we say it shouldn't be important. But it is important simply because it's meant to be personal, and people have carried it outside their personal space.
Conversations like this one leading up to the elections in less than a month all point to the fact that this is Nigeria's make or break election. But we've heard this particular statement before. What's different this time is that citizen engagement in the electoral process is higher now than ever before. So while all the politicians who are vying for the top job in the land make promises of El Dorado, conversations such as this one are insisting that people ensure that these politicians can deliver on their promises. They're asking that the Nigerian interrogates these rhetorics and manifestos given by politicians to ensure that they can actually deliver on the job before you cast your votes in the next elections. Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
Away from politics, the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, the ICPC, has rearrested the former registrar of the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board, Professor Adedibu Ojerinde. Professor Ojerinde, who's already facing trial for allegedly diverting public funds totaling about 5 billion naira, was arrested at the premises of the Federal High Court in Abuja by operatives of the ICPC shortly after his case was adjourned till February the 15th. The commission had earlier obtained a warrant for his arrest. It was gathered that the arrest order was issued by the Chief Judge of the High Court, Justice John Soho, following an ex parte application that was brought by the ICPC. The Minister of Interior, Mr. Rauf Aregbesola, says with the state-of-the-art facilities erected at correctional centers, criminals have fewer chances of successfully breaking into any jail in the country. Mr. Aregbesola stated this during the 64th Ministerial Press Briefing at the State House, where he said that there have been attempts to break into jails in recent times, but many of them were repelled. Our State House correspondent, Gloria Umezioke, reports.
It is the 64th session of the ministerial media briefing, and the protracted challenge of insecurity was the fulcrum on which conversations swung.
My team members.
The Interior Minister boasts of state-of-the-art facilities being erected in the 6 geopolitical zones. Upon this premise, he warns criminals not to attempt any jailbreak.
We are doing the best we can to ensure, one, that it will be difficult for anybody to attack our facilities. You may not know that some had attempted, and we have sent them back to their makers. But as I normally tell people, they can only run. They cannot hide. If they go out of circulation for now, because they cannot change their biometric, whenever they come out, they will be exposed. We are equipping our men to, on their own, defend those facilities. And the sister agencies that we have are equally upping their capacity to protect and defend our facilities. And we are improving the design of our facilities to make it almost impregnable.
The ministry in charge of 4 paramilitary agencies also oversees the conferment and renunciation of Nigerians. For instance, the ministry divulges that 309 Nigerians have so far opted to renounce their citizenship.
Between 2006 and 2021, 150 Nigerians renounced their citizenship. In 2022 alone, 159 Nigerians renounced their citizenship.
By the same token, the Interior Minister contends that the Nigeria Immigration Service have performed optimally in the last year, evident in the processing of 9.3 million passports in the last 7 years. The training of 10,000 officers within the NSCDC in the use of sophisticated firearms and over 33,500 across all 4 agencies so far are some of the present gains the Interior Minister is counting. But the fundamental challenge of sufficient technology still remains, and this is one aspect that is integral to security and one they must surmount in order to tackle the issue of security in the country in the future. From the Presidential Villa, Gloria Umezuki, Channels Television News.
And that's all from our Abuja studios. It's back now to you, Amarachi.
Thank you, Mark. We'll continue with stories in the north. More details are emerging from yesterday's attack that claimed the lives of scores of herders and their animals in Doma local government area of the state. According to the state governor, Abdullahi Sule, 37 of the people killed in the attack have so far been buried. The governor, who was on our program, Politics Today, said he gathered that the explosion came from a drone strike, but could not say for certain where it emanated from. Earlier in Lafia, the state capital, Governor Sule met with the national president of Mieti Allah Kautel Hore Bello Bodejo and other Fulani leaders to forestall a reprisal and ensure the maintenance of law and order in the state.
We took a decision that we will take this matter up with the federal government, and we are also trying to schedule a meeting, where some of the leaders of Mieti Allah will also have the opportunity to meet with some of the security chiefs in Abuja, for the purpose of finding a lasting solution to what is happening.
To some company news now. Mafab Communications, one of the Telecommunication firms issued a 5G license by the Nigerian Communications Commission in 2021 has finally begun rollout of the service in Lagos. The firm is the second operator to launch 5G services in the country and says it expects more coverage for Nigerians and acceleration of broadband services.
5G technology promises to take connectivity to the next level, and Mafab Communications, latching on to this commitment, is finally launching its services in Lagos State. MCOM, Mafab Communications, is one of the telecommunications firms that won the bid for the 5G spectrum license in December 2021. The chairman and founder says the rollout of the 5G network services will place Nigeria ahead of many other countries, especially in Africa.
The future is now brighter, with more exciting prospects and possibilities with the digital play of MCOM 5G network. MCOM 5G launch marks the beginning of immense opportunities for the country to achieve infinite possibilities with the purpose of enabling connectivity for a digital future.
Lagos is home to Nigeria's vibrant tech hub, and the state's Commissioner for Science and Technology believes Mafab's 5G launch has met the state's preparedness to transform Lagos to a smart city.
For us, in the Lagos State government, this launch will bring us even closer to realizing our dream of becoming a smart city. Though relatively new in the communications industry, Mafab Communications Limited has recorded a milestone achievement in the tech space.
The event is also an opportunity for the company to unveil a new logo. 3 icons that represent Signal, the universal symbol for connection, and M for Mafab were graphically modified to M.
So, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you the newest digital brand in Nigeria.
Though new in the telecommunications industry, Mafab Communications will offer voice and data services, and so far, 6 cities have been listed for its rollout: Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, Enugu, Kano, and Kaduna.
It's time for business news. Here's Jeffrey Uzuno.
Thanks, Amarachi, and welcome to Business News. Let's begin from some big news from the financial sector, where the Central Bank, the Nigeria Interbank Settlement Systems and Bankers Committee have launched the National Domestic Card Scheme in efforts to aid the country's payment ecosystem. The card, known as Afrigo, will enable African and international interoperability by allowing banks and other institutions to offer a variety of options. According to the CBN Governor, Godwin Emefiele, the new payment service solution is the first domestic card scheme in Africa. Nigeria appears to be leading again on the continent's financial ecosystem with the launch of the National Domestic Card Scheme, known as Afrigo. An innovative payment solution to promote inclusion and cross-border payment. At the virtual event, which has in attendance the leadership of the Central Bank, Nigeria Interbank Settlement System and Bankers Committee, CBN Governor Mr. Godwin Emefiele says the card will enhance flexibility for financial transactions.
This effort is not a quest to prevent international service providers from continuing to provide services in Nigeria. Rather, it is aimed at providing more options for domestic consumers whilst also promoting the delivery of services in a more innovative, cost-effective, and competitive manner. We have come up with this card to ensure that all card transactions, online transactions where you're using cards, will now, effective immediately, begin to go on the Nigerian National Domestic Card System.
Some of the features and benefits of Afrigo include acceptability, affordability, security, and data sovereignty. And Mr. Emefiele explains that existing bank cards are still valid.
All domestic card transactions that are going to be conducted in Nigeria will have to be through the Nigerian domestic cards. Your existing cards are fine. You can keep using them. But given that charges by foreign cards are in dollars, we will no longer pay dollars for those cards, for the charges on those cards. Particularly, we will only pay dollars for charges for transactions that are done with whether these domestic card or foreign cards outside Nigeria.
The Apex Bank stresses that international transactions on Afrigo commences with immediate effect and will support the growth of a robust and inclusive digital economy within the Nigerian domestic market. Now, the equities market made a rebound in today's trading session, reversing losses recorded so far. Larry Williams tells us more.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Let's take a look at how your money performed today. We have a rebound now, 0.29%, 52,752. That's for the all-share index, breaking that 52,600 level. Market cap, 28.733 trillion. Let's look at the activity chart today. We see volume there, 139 million units of stocks, valued at 2.02 billion naira. We see the deals, 3,549 less than what we had yesterday. Over to the sectoral performance now. We see the banking counter, thanks to the 5 tier 1 banks that bumping a counter up 1.58%. Consumer goods, that's up 0.05%. We see oil and gas, thanks to Total there, up 1.58%. And that's why we have this positive trend. And it's a positive market breadth today. Again, 25 gainers against 7 losers, and 84 billion are added to the market, recovering all that was lost in the past 2 days. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Larry Williams. It's back to you.
And that's it on business news. I'm Jeffrey Uzong. Is back to Amarachi for the rest of the news at 10.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks, Jeffrey. At least 11 people have died, 11 more injured after buildings were struck in several regions across Kyiv in Ukraine today. The state emergency service said it was the worst damage to residential buildings in the region. Teniola Oyetayo has more in Around the World in 5.
Good evening from the Channel studio in London for your international news around the world in 5. Russia's launched a wave of missiles at Ukraine a day after Germany and the United States pledged tanks to aid Kyiv's fight against the invasion. In the capital, crowds of people took cover in underground metro stations. According to officials, 1 person died and 2 others were injured after strikes hit a building in Kyiv. Officials also reported strikes on 2 energy facilities in the southern region of Odessa. The attacks came as Russia said it received the tank offer as Western involvement in the conflict. 9 Palestinians have been killed during an Israeli military raid in the occupied West Bank. Palestinian health officials say it's the deadliest raid in years. An elderly woman was reported among the dead in the flashpoint town of Jenin. The Israeli military said its troops went in to arrest Islamic Jihad militants planning major attacks. The Palestinian presidency has accused Israel of massacre in the northern town, which has been the scene of repeated raids in recent months. France has agreed to a request from Burkina Faso's military leaders to withdraw all its troops from the country. Burkina Faso, which is currently battling an Islamist insurgency, says it wants to defend itself. There are currently 400 French special forces in Burkina Faso who have just 1 month to leave. France says it would also recall its ambassador to the country for consultations. Last year, French troops also left neighboring Mali, where they had spent 8 years fighting jihadists. Tens of thousands of people have marked Australia's National Day by attending protest rallies in cities across the nation amid a rising political and social reckoning with the country's colonial history. Australia Day commemorates the date that the British colonial fleet sailed into Sydney Harbour more than 2 centuries ago. In Sydney, the capital of New South Wales, Australia's most populous state, large crowds gathered in support of Indigenous Australians.
Nobody's got the right to celebrate genocide. That's it. This is ground zero genocide. Ground zero happened here on 26th of January, 1788. Nobody should be celebrating. It's not an event to celebrate.
I think it's really important that we come out and protest today and show support in any way we can for Indigenous Australians. It's actually the 85th day of mourning this year, so our Indigenous Australians have been protesting this for 85 years. It's not really televised, but it's been going on for so long. So yeah, I think it's important that we show up and we mourn with them and yeah, stand in solidarity, I guess.
India has showcased its military and its cultural diversity in a colourful parade celebrating its 74th Republic Day. The public holiday marks the anniversary of India officially adopting its constitution, making it a sovereign republic. Its highlight is a parade which is held in capital city Delhi and telecasts live across the country. Every year, the country also invites a foreign dignitary as a chief guest to the parade. This year, Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi was the guest of honor. And finally, Francesca and Maria Ricciardi have celebrated their 100th birthday, surrounded by 50 grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Born in 1923, the twin sisters doubled off their ages and celebrated the day as their 200th birthday. Francesca says she never imagined they would live this long and described the milestone as a gift from God. The sisters worked in the fields as farmers and never moved from their small village in southeast Italy. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Many thanks, Teniola. Welcome to Sports News. Super Falcons head coach Randy Waldrum has called up 23 players for next month's Revelation Cup tournament to be staged in Mexico City. Our prominent players in the list include Onome Ebi, Azizat Oshola, Rashidat Ajibade, Francisca Odega, Uche Nakanu, Ashley Plumter, and Chiamaka Nadozie. Hosts Mexico, Nigeria, Costa Rica, and Colombia are the participating teams at the tournament, with matches between February the 15th to the 21st. The Revelation Cup serves as preparation for this year's FIFA Women's World Cup to be staged in Australia and New Zealand. And Gareth Southgate has revealed his family convinced him to stay on as England boss when he debated his future after the FIFA World Cup. Southgate was unsettled by fierce criticism of England's woeful Nations League performances prior to the World Cup in Qatar. The 52-year-old was still considering walking away following England's 2-1 defeat against France in the World Cup quarterfinals in December. But then Southgate spent a week thinking over his options before it was announced that he would see out a contract that runs until December 2024. The Spanish La Liga has condemned acts of hatred and intimidation against Vinicius Jr. after an effigy of the Real Madrid forward was hung from a bridge near the club's training ground. A banner reading "Madrid hates Real" was attached to the bridge's railings. The La Liga said it will press for an investigation by relevant state security forces and bodies into the effigy and banner and will seek convictions for those responsible and request the most severe sentences. And that's Sports News. I'm Ayotunde Balogun.
Thanks, Ayotunde. And the main news again. River State Governor Nyesom Wike today declared that Nigeria must get it right in the 2023 general elections. He also warned of dire consequences of failure as former President Olusegun Obasanjo criticized current practice of democracy in the country. Both men spoke at the Port Harcourt International Conference in the River State capital. I'll be all on the news at 10 tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Amarachi Rubani. Good night and stay safe.